Sorry for the delay. We had some minor technical difficulties. But I'm going to go ahead and call this June 12, 2023 meeting of the Somerville School Committee to order with a moment of silence and a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Act of 2023, this meeting of the Somerville School Committee will be conducted via hybrid participation. We will post an audio recording, audio-video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of these proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Somerville website and local cable access government channels. We will begin, as always, by introducing our interpreters for the evening, starting with our Haitian Creole interpreter.
Alors, bonsoir tout le monde. Moi, je suis Gina Miranda. C'est moi-même qui interprète pour Aswea. Si vous m'entendez en créole haïtien, s'il vous plaît, cliquez sur un petit côté web qui marqué qui bleu, un petit monde qui bleu. Les finis wap ka entendez en créole haïtien. Merci. Good evening. My name is Gina Miranda. I'll be your Haitian Creole interpreter for tonight. Thank you.
Next, our Portuguese interpreter.
Alô, boa noite, meu nome é Bento, eu vou ser o seu intérprete nessa noite. Para você ouvir a reunião no seu idioma, apenas você clicar onde tem esse globo e diz Interpreters, aí você vai selecionar o seu idioma português, ouvir a reunião no seu idioma. Good evening, my name is Ben Cruz and I will be your Portuguese interpreter for this evening.
And last but never least, our Spanish interpreter.
Muy buenas noches, mi nombre es Erika García. Seré su intérprete de español para esta noche. Para escuchar esta reunión, haga un clic en el globo que se encuentra en la parte de abajo de su pantalla y seleccione español. Good evening, my name is Erika Garcia. I will be your Spanish interpreter for tonight. To listen to this meeting in Spanish, click the globe at the bottom of your screen and select Spanish. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Curley, will you call the roll?
Dr. Ackman.
Here.
Mayor Ballantyne.
Present.
Ms. Pitone.
Present.
I believe she's remote.
Yeah.
Ms. Pitone?
Present. Present.
Okay. Dr.
Present.
Phillips.
Here.
Ms. Dion.
Here.
Ms. Barish.
Here.
President Ewan-Campbell. Ms. Krepshin.
Here.
Mr. Green.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Fantastic. So the way we have a lot on the agenda for this evening, and the way we're going to tackle things is we're going to start off with celebrating our retirees, then we'll hear from our student reps, then we'll do public comment, and then I think we'll probably take up Dorner Hill building. So with that, we'll start with celebrating our retirees. Dr. Curley.
Thank you, Chair Green. This is one of, I think, everyone's favorite meetings of the year as we kind of gather to celebrate the end of the school year. We take some time to honor some of our incredible faculty and staff who have served the district and are retiring this year. And we have, I believe, 7 folks that are with us tonight. And we would ask first for Ms. Coratiello to come up and to recognize the 25 years of service for Mr. William Bingay, our school nurse. Ms. Coratiello, will you join us at the podium?
So I would like to recognize Bill, who has been a wonderful nurse for the Somerville Public Schools, and I'd like to share some of the things that children have said about him, sometimes to other nurses. I don't want another nurse. Why aren't you more like Bill? When is Bill coming back? We would prefer that Bill be here. And we've also had a couple of nurses whose own children have had the pleasure of having Bill Bingay as their school nurse, and they said he was the best school nurse they ever had. For nurses who worked with Bill, he was a mentor to us. He was a calm presence always. Bill is somebody who, as one of our nurses put it, really helped other nurses see that you can connect with kids in myriad ways, and that it's not always what they tell you directly, and it doesn't always happen quickly, and sometimes it takes time and perseverance to build up a relationship and to gain their trust. And Bill has shown all of us that it's okay to wait until children are ready to open up and tell you what's really going on. So Bill has just been a wonderful, calm and dignified presence for many years, steady always and helpful always. So thank you, Bill.
Bill, if you want to say something, you're welcome to. Okay. Superintendent Curley.
Thank you, Chair. I would now invite Principal Sean McGuire to come up and recognize the service of Patricia Creedon and Daniel Evans.
Brown Elementary School. It goes without saying that she was an institution, and that she is one of those rare teachers that teaches with everything that she does. She not only has left her indelible mark on the Benjamin Brown School, but she'll be remembered for generations for her influence on children and the Benjamin Brown as a whole. She's also a huge Elvis fan, and I wish her luck in her retirement. We hope she comes back to visit us and maybe even come to help support some of our students with her tutoring skills. Trish, please enjoy your retirement. Would you like to speak?
I just want to say it's been a pleasure and an honor teaching the students of Somerville, and I'll miss them very much, and my colleagues too. Thank you.
Up next is Dan Evans. Dan Evans, also born and raised in Somerville, and he ended up working over in Cambridge at Harvard. Usually at the Brown School, we go on from the Brown School to the elementary school to the high school, and then we go to Harvard as a student. But Dan went there and worked in Harvard for many years. We coaxed him back to the Benjamin Brown School about 10 years ago. He has been a mainstay in our library. We often had quite the conversations about the voracious reading habits of our Benjamin Brown students, and would often be up in the library talking, and as we were talking, we'd have students come in and out, checking out books at odd times and throughout the day. Everyone knew Dan Evans in our school. Everyone still knows him and misses him. His influence in the library will certainly be missed, and we hope you come back and visit and stay for a while too, Dan. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Green, and we'll miss both Dan and Trish tremendously. Thank you.
Superintendent Curley.
Thank you, Chair. Now I'd like to recognize Mr. Mazza, who will be honoring Maureen Cronin tonight.
Thank you. I have the honor and privilege of reading the amazing words from Principal Courtney Goslin about an extraordinary educator, Maureen Cronin, and I can attest to everything that is written on this piece of paper. I was fortunate enough to work with Maureen for 7 years, so I know and can speak to each one of these points. It's an honor to celebrate the career of one of Somerville's most legendary educators. If I had 1 ounce of the creativity and musical talent that Mrs. Cronin does, then I would have written a song with her and had students come to sing for us tonight. Instead, I will have to try to put into words the love and adoration that everyone at Winter Hill has for Mrs. Cronin. Mrs. Cronin began her teaching career many years ago as a middle school teacher and taught many different grades, spending her last years as a second grade teacher. During those years, she distinguished herself as a compassionate, caring, and committed teacher who always put her students first. Whether taking a moment to comfort a student who is having a hard time, to supporting a new teacher who's having a tough year, to bringing joy to everyone with her cards and songs, Mrs. Cronin's presence permeated the culture of Winter Hill. Here are a few words that her colleagues used to describe her. I'm going to turn this way towards you. Dedicated beyond compare, one of the most empathetic individuals I have ever met, committed to students and colleagues, can always count on her for a good song or heartfelt card. There's a theme here. There's a lot of singing. Well loved and respected by her peers, mentor to many both formally and informally, and encourage young teachers. Amazing ability to turn any event into lyrics, the teacher that I want to be. Mrs. Cronin is the standard to which all educators at Winter Hill hold themselves to. The Maureen Cronin Excellence in Teaching Award is the most coveted award at our annual Winties celebration and is given each year to a teacher who strives to have the impact that she has had. Her legacy will continue at Winter Hill and beyond through all the students she has taught, all the colleagues she has worked with, and the many, many lives she has touched. So we are so happy for you. We miss you dearly, but congratulations.
May I just say one thing?
You can say
Yes.
whatever you want.
I'm going to try to speak without getting tearful because I get tearful all the time when I think about school, but I had a most amazing career at Winter Hill. I worked with a wonderful group of students, parents, and colleagues. I loved going to school every day. It was just always so much fun. And please, please keep Winter Hill in your mind. They deserve a new school, and I hope they'll get that news very soon. Thanks. Oh, yeah, thanks. My sister's gonna...
It is now my pleasure to invite Principal Baker and Ms. Coratiello back to recognize Kathleen Hearn and Dignora Diaz.
She's created a strong learning foundation for her first graders. She's an expert in teaching students how to read. Mrs. Hearn has worked tirelessly to expose her students to books that are engaging and has motivated them to develop a love of reading. Kathleen has a vast classroom library that contains information on many subjects. She is extremely generous and gives books to her students to keep. Students come to understand and enjoy reading. First grade teachers teach their students a wide range of subjects, but learning how to read unlocks that knowledge. Mrs. Hearn teaches them the skills and helps them acquire the key to unlock the door to learning, reading. Mrs. Hearn will be missed by the West Somerville Neighborhood School family. She will always be a member of our Wolf Pack. We wish her a wonderful retirement and thank her many times over for all the work she has done for the West Somerville and the Somerville Public Schools. All our best to Mrs. Hearn.
I can't speak to Kathleen's teaching of reading, but I do think it's important that everybody know that she gave winter hats to every student in her class every year. She also, something I appreciated so very much as a school nurse, she brought pants that any child could wear. We had a frequent need for pants, as you can imagine. She also, in addition to bringing new clothes, hand-me-downs, anything she thought I could use, she also brought backpacks, lunch boxes, winter coats, anything that she thought a student might need. And it didn't end after first grade. Once you were her student through 8th grade, and she would bring you clothes if she thought you needed them or anything else that she thought would make a difference in your life. So thank you for being so generous, Kathleen.
Next is Dignora Diaz. Most of the time, the first person that a new parent and guardian and student meet is the school secretary. That first interaction is so important. Mrs. Diaz always ensured that our family's interaction is very important. Dignora also always ensured that the families and students felt comfortable coming into our school. Those first meetings established positive connections to our school that lasted a long time. In her role as a secretary, Dignora knew everyone: students, staff, parents, guardians, and the entire school. All felt welcome by her and were not afraid to ask questions. She has a gift of making people feel at ease. Mrs. Diaz was the person who came to know the entire school community. Being the lead person in the office is not an easy task. The phone is always ringing, the doorbell buzzing, students, staff, and administration needing help, and more all at the same time. Dignora stayed cool and calm and made running the office look easy. The West Somerville was lucky to have her in the main office. She always made time to help people when they needed help. Dignora is greatly missed. Her caring demeanor towards all shine brightly in the office every day. She has helped hundreds of students and families during their time at the West Somerville. We thank her so much for all of her hard work and wish her a wonderful retirement. Dignora, you will always be part of the Wolf Pack.
So I just want to add that I was one of those parents 24 years ago when the Unidos program started in the old St. Polycarps, and Dignora was the secretary. I cannot tell you how lucky we were to have her that first year. A new program, no principal, people didn't know that Unidos existed. When we would call as parents, people would say, "Oh, you mean the Butler Drive building?" Or, "Do you mean the two-way?" But Dignora brought a level of calm and peace to all of us. She showed us the ropes. She made sure that everyone would be comfortable. And most importantly, maybe, as Kim said, she was lovely to everybody, spoke English and Spanish. And she carried that on, not just at Unidos, but at West Somerville, when she made everybody feel welcome, and also at the Brown School, when occasionally there was no nurse, and she had to, she had to fill in sometimes and make sure that children had their medications. So Dignora has had a long and wonderful history with us, and thank you so much, Dignora.
Thank you.
And finally, thank you, Chair. We would invite Mariana McDonald to recognize Patty DeFry.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor and a privilege to talk about Patty DeFry. Patty's been working for the City of Somerville for 43 years. She started in the City Hall Department, and then later on, from 87 to 90, she was the secretary to Mayor Brune. She's a Somerville girl through and through, married to a Somerville guy, has 2 kids, Julia and John, and she just loves being here. After staying home for a little bit with her kids, she came to work again, and she worked as a paraprofessional at the Capuano School, and then as a secretary at the Capuano School. From there, she went to work as a secretary at the special ed, and I am lucky to say she then came to work for me. So Patty is a loyal, she's the hardest working person I know. We're all crying already at work because we don't want to see her go, but we're very happy for her. She's been a great asset to Somerville. She knows a lot of people. She's well respected by a lot of people, and she really deserves this time to be retired and enjoy her life, her new chapter. Thank you, Patty. And I forgot to say one thing. We started off all as colleagues, but I'm very lucky to call her my friend now.
All right, so before we recess to be able to thank people personally and to have a little cake, I just need to know, gentleman in the back who was just recording that, are you one of Patty's sons? Because you waved when she said sons, I just wanted to know. All right, so as I said, we have cake, so we're going to take 10 minutes to recess, have a little cake, thank our retirees for their years of service personally, and so we are recessed. We'll reconvene in 1 minute. One minute, 1 minute. Hey, Jeff, is there water in there? I'm not asking you to get it for me, just asking if there was some.
You can get me some.
All right, if members can come back so we can resume.
We have student reps, right?
Yep. All right. I'm going to call this meeting of the Somerville School Committee back to order. Next before us is our student reps. Ms. Santiago, are they with us?
Yes, we have Ana Sofia with us. Oh, Marcia's with us.
Marcia, Ms. Norbachway, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Ana Sophia had to go do some family thing, so I'm covering for her. But I have everything on the agenda. So there was a sophomore and junior semi-formal that happened on Friday.
Dr. Ack, you can't close the door legally. Can't close the door. Can't. Still. Sorry, Ms. Norbachway, go ahead.
The sophomore and junior semi-formal was pretty successful and people had a lot of fun at it. And there was also the graduation that happened. And I know that the SHS orchestra and band and the chorus were all involved in it. And we also think that went pretty good. Even though we thought it was gonna rain, it didn't rain too badly, so still a lot of fun. I know that the 10th graders had civics projects, and I don't know too much about it because I'm not in 10th grade anymore, but I know that some people might be writing to the city hall or school committee or the principal or something like that because they're working on like knowing the levels of government and who to contact when they have a problem and like who the change makers are. And as I'm sure you all know, it's the last week of school, so everyone's pretty excited. And today, the 9th graders went on a field trip to the Holocaust Memorial and the MLK Embrace Memorial. And it's like a wrap up for their 9th grade world history classes. and we think that it's like really good that they got to experience something outside of like Somerville and like read some history that wasn't like directly in front of them. And some of the things that the student committee has been looking at is like having other field trips for next year, because like we feel like it's like a part that's not really like at our school, and like we only get like field trips if you're like in AP classes or like have like a sports team. And another thing we're looking at is like having like a student athlete union, because we feel like we should have more input and stuff like uniforms and like who's coaching and stuff like that. And there were athletic banquets last week for like track and tennis and other sports like that, all the spring sports. And we wanted to highlight that there was an above and beyond exhibit at the Somerville Museum, and it was made with the local history club with Ada Santos and the students in the history club. And it features the Olympian Phil Rivas. And I wanted to add that was pretty cool because I got to meet an Olympian, and I know that the exhibit is open from June 8th to July 8th. And I know that if you are under 18, it's free, but for everyone else, it's $5. But I think it's really cool and that people should check it out. And that's all I have for you today.
Thank you. Did anyone have any questions for Ms. Narbotchway? Ms. Krepshin.
It's not a question so much as a comment that I'm excited to hear that the ninth graders went on a field trip, because I know that one of the things we've been hearing from a lot of students at the high school is wanting to have more field trips, so I'm glad to hear that that happened. And also just, I love the idea of a student athlete union. I think it's a great idea, so thank you.
Okay. Hearing no other questions or comments, we shall continue with our agenda, which brings us to public comment. We have 15 people signed up for public comment today, so each person will be limited to 2 minutes. Again, although it's in our agenda to start talking about the new rules for public comment, but currently we don't have any, so rather than tell you to be respectful and be nice, I'm going to ask you very nicely to be respectful to each other, be nice, and speak with grace. With that, first up we have Meredith Jones, followed by Samantha Zilstorf, and then Carol Voulgaris. Meredith, once we have a timer up. 1 second. All right. Meredith, the floor is yours.
Great. Hi, good evening. Congratulations to the retirees, if there are any here. And I first want to just express my appreciation to the mayor. I appreciate the urgency that I've heard from you in talking about Winter Hill over the last few days, so thank you for that. My name is Meredith Jones. I am a resident of 60 Trull and a parent to 2 kindergartners at Winter Hill. And I'm speaking tonight to ask for 3 things. First, a clear plan for where our students will be in the fall. I ask that you do everything you can to keep our students together and not fragmented across the city. I'm not ready to give up on returning to Winter Hill until a report from the structural engineer has been shared, along with a summary in clear language with the public. I realize that others in the city might be ready to abandon the building they just had to leave, and I understand that, but I'd rather the final decision be made with more information. Second, I ask that you try your hardest to plan for a future Winter Hill Community Innovation School in the community of Winter Hill. The Winter Hill Playground is a social hub in the neighborhood, and I think a new building in that same location could be a centerpiece of the neighborhood as well. Lastly, I ask you to communicate what you're doing while you're doing it, even if it's bad news. It's a privilege to be able to show up here tonight or log on several nights in a row as I did last week. And I know not everyone whose voices should be heard can chime in for a 7 o'clock meeting. So please continue your efforts of sharing updates. There's no such thing as over-communicating when it comes to our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Samantha Zilstorf, followed by Carol Voulgaris, and then Emily Spicer-Hankel. Samantha, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Samantha Zielsdorf, and I live at 5 Sunnyside Ave. I have a kindergarten student at Winter Hill, and I also have a younger son who I hoped would attend Winter Hill next year. I'm speaking tonight to let the school committee know how disappointed my husband and I are with what happened to the school. The city has known about the conditions of the Winter Hill School, which teachers and parents have been coming to the school committee meetings for years telling. It shouldn't have been a surprise that the school is now literally crumbling. My family and other families in our community are now left wondering where our kids will attend school next year. We still haven't been updated on the conditions of the building or whether it'll be safe for our children to return in the fall. So first, I'm requesting that you share with us an inspection report about the condition on the school, exactly what happened, what else can be found, and what the implications are for the future in this site. Long-term, I'm requesting the Winter Hill School remains at 115 Sycamore Street. I chose to send my kids to the school in our neighborhood, and I know some city council members are in favor of joining the Winter Hill School with the Brown School in a new location, perhaps at Trump Field, and I'm strongly opposed to this idea. One of the goals of the school committee is equitable allocation of resources. Combining these schools would mean families would have to travel further to get to their school than families in other parts of the city. The other neighborhoods in Somerville have proximity schools. Even though both of our schools have been neglected for decades, it doesn't mean that these two neighborhoods don't deserve to have the same. I've loved the community and teachers here at Winter Hill School, and I request you finally show the Winter Hill community you care about us by rebuilding our school in its current location. Thank you.
Next we have Carol Volgris, then Emily Spicer-Hankel, then Elizabeth Sacco-Clock. Carol, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Carol Volgaris, and I live at 166 Sycamore Street. I am the parent of a rising first grader at Winter Hill, and I also have a 2-year-old who I had hoped to enroll in pre-K at Winter Hill in 2025. As a Sycamore Street resident, I am alarmed at the prospect of the school at 115 Sycamore sitting vacant for over a decade, like the Star Market on Broadway or the Powder House School. The best way to avoid this is to keep Winter Hill at its current site in the long term. Moreover, as a Winter Hill parent, I urge the school committee to advocate for a long-term solution that would keep our Winter Hill school community together. Many Winter Hill families chose this school for its proximity. We value proximity not just for convenience, but for the way having our kids in a neighborhood school connects us to our neighbors. The community we have built at Winter Hill is likely to fracture if the school is not at or very close to 115 Sycamore Street. I also ask that the school committee keep Winter Hill families informed about how each alternative under consideration might affect school assignment, both for incoming kindergartners and for current Winter Hill students for whom Winter Hill may no longer be the closest school if another site is chosen. Will Winter Hill families be given a priority option to enroll at a closer school? Do the schools adjacent to the Winter Hill neighborhood have the capacity to absorb Winter Hill students who can't travel to a new location? Will Winter Hill students be provided transportation to a temporary school site? We and our children are anxious and eager to learn where we will be in September and beyond. Thank you for engaging with us on this urgent issue.
We have Emily Spicer-Hankel, Elizabeth Sacco-Clock, and then Kate St. Laurent.
Hi, my name is Emily Spicer-Henkel. I live at 13 Troll Street. It's good to be back here. I didn't write anything tonight because it's such an honor to be here constantly with all of these other amazing parents and oftentimes teachers and administrators at the Winter Hill School. As you heard even from the retirees, the Winter Hill School and the community is a really incredibly special place. And we know that that will not necessarily mean that you can keep it, just the specialness of it does not necessarily make the decision to keep it at a certain location. But one of our big asks and one of our major concerns in the community is that it is in that site as the Winter Hill School. That is an incredibly important part of this community, is asked to both the school committee and I think you say through the chair to the city and to the mayor that Winter Hill stays where it is. I also want to just echo that we do want to have a report. We do want to understand what happened to our school and what is continuing to happen to our school. There are a lot of people talking and we want to know whether we can go back into that school for a little while or not. I think people are very open to options, but we want to know about those options and we want to be involved in the conversation. We have been here, and as I think Meredith said, it does feel like a privilege. I have somebody at home watching my kids. I have a rising first grader and a rising preschooler in Ms. Berkowitz's class, hopefully coming this next year. But not everybody can be here, and you can't hear everybody's voices, and there are a lot of voices that speak other languages in our community. There are parents of kids with special needs in our community, and it's harder for them to get here. And we do want to have some kind of way for them to have their voices heard as well. And all the people who are here are backed by all those people, but we do want some kind of community conversation where they can be involved as well. So again, keeping the school where it is, having a clear plan and real knowledge for what we're going to do in the fall, and understanding what happened to the school is really important to us. Thank you so much.
Elizabeth Sacco Clark, then Kate St. Laurent, then Ali Contini Field. Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Sacco Clock. My child's in kindergarten at Winter Hill. I'm deeply grateful to the team of people who made it possible for our youngest students to be welcomed so warmly at the Capuano School this week. Now we need to think not only of a short-term solution for the fall, but a long-term solution as well. I'm here tonight to implore you not to abandon the existing site of the Winter Hill School at 115 Sycamore Street. I understand the mayor is trying to creatively problem solve for both Winter Hill and the Brown, including an idea to permanently relocate the school to Trump Field or to Washington Street. Doing that would create a school desert in our neighborhood. The Winter Hill serves some of our most vulnerable populations. The parent body least able to be here tonight to fight for their kids is also the least likely to have safe, reliable transit to get their kids to a school further away. Keep us as close to Sycamore Street as possible while renovations happen, and bring us back when they're done. Although the building itself is in well-established disrepair, the site is a gem. The playgrounds, the outdoor classroom, and the soccer field are assets to the neighborhood. Listen to your educators and your families. Keep us together while we have to be away from the building, and bring us back when you can. I understand it may take several years to complete, but it would be worth it. Finally, if you have specific reasons why it is not possible to rebuild on site, be transparent about this. If the reasons are financial, this community would rally to fundraise. If it's not possible to redistribute students into other schools, state that directly. Make the results of the feasibility study public, and appoint someone to help constituents understand them. Somerville has an unfortunate history of abandoning school buildings for more than a decade. Even if my own kid never gets to attend the new Winter Hill, as a resident, I want and we need a school in our neighborhood. Short-term solutions cannot wait, but we are willing to wait for you to do the right thing long-term. Thank you.
Kate St. Laurent, Ali Contini Field, Jody Newser Abrahams. I'm sorry, her name is close like mine.
Hello.
Kate, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Kate St. Laurent. I'm going to be really honest. I was going to stay home and watch this on Zoom tonight. I have been exhausted. I have shown up at a lot of meetings. I have listened well into, the wee hours as all of these meetings have happened, and I know you have all been there too. But my pre-K daughter said something to me on their way home from Capuano tonight that just really hit me, and I said, I have to show up and say this out loud. She said, I'm really, really sad that the Winter Hill School is crumbling. And I asked her to expand on that a little bit. And she said, I really miss being with all of my teachers and my friends, and there are just different rules. And it was then that I realized that it doesn't really matter for her that she's in this beautiful brand new building at the Capuano. It has to do with her community and the people that she associates as her home. And so I decided I had to show up tonight, and I had to tell you that story. It's about our community. She wants that more than a brand new building, and we are wanting a brand new building, but please, I am asking you to keep the community together next year. I am hoping, and my preference is to keep the Winter Hill site at the current location at 115 Sycamore. And please come and speak to our families in our location, and not at a time which is incredibly difficult for all families to show up when people are trying to put their kids to bed. So for that, thank you for listening.
Next is Eileen Contini Field, then Jody, then Tina McField.
Speaking of bedtime, I signed Jody up, but she may or may not make it, so if we
Okay.
could skip her to the end. Or not, I don't want to get you in trouble. But I can go for me.
Please do.
My name is Eileen Contini Field. I live at 215 Summer Street in Ward 3, and I'm a parent of a third grader and a kindergartner currently at Winter Hill. Currently, my kindergartner is actually at Capuano, and my third grader is currently at Tufts, and in the morning we go in two different directions. And I just wanted to underscore what everyone else here has said, that everyone really needs certainty, and we would like to see an engineering report as soon as possible in the nearest term. We need to know what the issues were and are. And in the medium term, we need to know what's happening in the fall, because we have people who, I can't work because I'm too distracted. I can't sleep. I'm up at 3 a.m. worrying. And in the long term, I would like the school to remain at 115 Sycamore. We actually live outside of the Winter Hill catchment. We live in the Kennedy catchment, and we chose Winter Hill because we thought that it would be the best choice for our kids who are neurodivergent, and I stand by that choice, even though the amount of uncertainty that they have faced with the Winter Hill building has made it really difficult to stand by that choice. But I still stand by it because I think the people in the community are worth it, and I think it was still the right choice for our kids. I would love for that community to remain together. Thank you.
All right, so the next we have Tina McField, Sam Feldman, and we like Lauka.
Good evening. My name is Tina McFields, and I live at 431 Broadway, and I am speaking as a parent from the Haley School. And I want to just start out by sharing my own personal story that brings me to this moment. In 2019, I moved to Massachusetts with my son, and we were looking for a school, and we selected the Haley School because they had smaller class sizes, because they had looping, and because they had a community that was promising project-based learning and also enrichment trips for all students. And at this moment, the school is not the environment that we signed up for. It is drastically different, and there has also been no communication over the 3 years that we've been here about the way the school was going to change, and not enough community voice has been involved in the process. So currently at the Healy School, the class sizes are much larger. There has been a decision to end looping, and there has also been resource constraints about the amount or limit of off-site learning trips that the students are able to take. And so we're coming before the committee today just to ask for your support. We are also experiencing, after June 30th, a transition in leadership, and this is a critical time where the school needs some support. They also need some infrastructure, and we're asking for the school committee to help support with communication and transparency with families, to also support and consider delaying the decision to end looping because not enough parent and community voice has been involved in that decision making. And also we are asking that in general, parents are able to have a seat at the table in a more pronounced way to have more community input in the decisions impacting the Healy. Thank you.
Thank you. Sam Feldman, Emily Leica, Emily Hart.
Good evening. My name is Sam Feldman, and I live at 60 Bartlett Street. I'm the parent of a rising fourth grader and kindergartner at Winter Hill. Thank you for the urgency and the work done until today. I'm here tonight to voice my support for doing all that's possible to create a great educational experience for the students of the Winter Hill and Brown schools. I came to this country as a refugee at the age of 6 with my family not speaking any English. I went through the public school system and ESL programs, and I understand two things. One, the importance of giving voice to those who are not able to speak here today, and two, the importance of a quality public education to the future of our city and Commonwealth. It is thanks to the hard work of my teachers and the safe building that I had that I'm here today as both a resident of Somerville and a small business owner. There are many smarter people here than I on the exact details of the how, but the what is clear, doing all that is possible to create a great educational experience for the students of the Winter Hill and Brown schools. Thank you.
Emily Lauka, then we'll start our online portion with Emily Hart, and then Jonah Larson's forward.
My name is Emily Lalka. I'm a resident of 99 Thurston Street and a parent of 3 Healy Hawks. I also want to lend my support to the Winter Hill Community School that's on my street. We are not in the Healy school zone. We are in the Winter Hill school zone, and my kids attend the Healy. We attend the Healy because of looping, and the abrupt change to announce an end to looping at the Healy came as a shock to families at the end of this school year. It's been an integral part of the Healy experience. Our families did not have an opportunity to learn about the end of looping or participate in a process. The decision significantly changes the structure of our elementary teaching model our students and families expect. Families don't have the information, research, or data on the potential benefits of this change. It's the sort of information we would have received in discussion and presentation of a proposed change. I understand there's benefits to focusing on one grade level. There's also many benefits we've personally experienced from the continuity of the looping model, the social emotional benefits of building longer working relationships with our teachers and the families, having that connection my child has had with their teacher in their class, having a child with anxiety, knowing that they're going to have that continuity year to year. The breadth of knowledge that our teachers have teaching multiple grade levels when we have kids that have needs across a wide variety. We have incredibly talented, caring, and professional educators. We want to hear more about why and have these conversations. Looping is one of the most exciting things we share about our school's identity and what families like so much about their experience, even when it hasn't gone as planned. It's what our incoming families are expecting in the fall. I ask the decision to end looping be paused so that information can be shared with current and incoming families, and these conversations can take place. Families are included in this process with staff so we can understand their needs, and whatever the decision, it will be reflective of a plan with community input, clear communication, and a vision for the future of Healy. Thank you.
Hello. Hello? Okay, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I live at 57 Endicott Ave, and I'd like to address the recent decision to end looping at Healy, where my child is a first grader. As a parent, what has been most challenging about this decision is that I have not been given enough information to understand how the decision was reached. More importantly, this significant change being made without a community process raises concerns for me about the district-wide policies and practices around decision-making. I really respect the expertise and collective experience of teachers and staff with the looping model, and I do believe that what's good for teachers is good for the students. And if the teachers would like this change, I will follow their lead. Unfortunately, I feel that the flawed decision process has really broken trust between families and the administration. So hopefully going forward, we can have a broader conversation about decision-making practices in general, and also the end of looping at Healy, including how to address the gap left by removing one of the defining features of the school. I think we really need a process that can restore families' confidence that their involvement in the school is valued, and also one who lives up to Healy's values of student and family participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Jonah Larson's forward, and then Karen Chmielewski. Jonah? Jonah, the floor is yours. Jonah? Going once. Going twice. Jonah, we're waiting for you to unmute yourself, apparently. Last call. All right, I'm sorry. Please submit your comments in writing. Last but not least, we have Karen Chmielewski. Karen?
Yes, hi, can you hear me now?
Yes. Floor is yours.
Okay, so my name is Karen Chmielewski, and I live at 115 Bartlett Street. I'm a parent of a current Healy 5th grader, as well as a 9th grader who attended the Healy. I would like to ask the school committee to pause the decision made by our principal to get rid of looping at the Healy School so that the community has more time to discuss and understand why the decision was made. We were all very surprised by this decision. Additionally, first graders and third graders thought that they would have the same classes and teachers next year, and only found out 3 weeks ago that looping was canceled. We also have incoming kindergarten families who are under the impression that their child will experience looping at the Healy, and may not know even now that they will not. We chose the Healy when our oldest child was entering kindergarten, and a large part of our decision was made because of looping. Both of my children have benefited from fewer class transitions. They have had less anxiety every other year. My youngest told me tonight that she loved looping because she has had the best teachers and got to have them for more than 1 year. I think my kids benefited by getting to know their teachers better over 2 years, and additionally, by building stronger relationships with their peers. I think that looping is an integral part at the Healy School and would like to see it continue, but at the very least, would like to see it continue for 1 more year so that children can finish the loops they've been expecting, and we can discuss the discontinuation in a larger community format so that plans can be made to best support our teachers and students with this very big change. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. As a reminder for families, if you're interested in public comment and speaking public comment in the future, please sign up before the meeting begins. I'm sorry, I did miss one person. I think someone is here to read for Inez Santos, who is in Portugal right now. My apologies. I put the note there and then moved on.
Hi, I'm reading this on behalf of Inez Santos, a parent of a kindergartner and rising pre-K student at Winter Hill Community Innovation School. Inez Santos, who lives at 18 James Street. I'm writing to you today to ask that you please invest all the reconstruction efforts and attention in rebuilding Winter Hill at its current site. I've spoken to several elected officials in the last few weeks, and I'm aware that some city council members are in favor of a new school location, potentially combining Winter Hill and Brown schools at Trumfield or another location. I humbly ask that you don't do this. Winter Hill deserves a neighborhood school, one that Winter Hill residents can walk to. Trumfield is not in our neighborhood, it isn't walkable for most of our neighborhood, and will immediately disband our school community. closely. I am asking you to consider the history of resilience on the part of the WHCIS community. Despite the unimaginable challenges, our school flourishes into the kind of place where teachers stay for decades and students are proud to be a part of. I find it unconscionable that after decades of neglect, the city would now choose to give us somehow even less than what we've had. Please, haven't we suffered enough? Can you in good conscience say, we've neglected your school for so long that we endangered your health and well-being, and now we will not value the community that you built with each other despite these conditions? How many ways can you tell us you don't care about us? Please show this neighborhood and the incredible educators of Winter Hill that you respect us and our school. Please make a commitment to 1, clear communication with the WHCIS community, 2, a clear and comprehensive plan for the 23-24 school year, and 3, reconstruction of the Winter Hill School at its current location. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. My apologies again for that oversight. So unfortunately, they had till the meeting began to sign up, and they did not. And that's a precedent we do not want to be setting. But people are welcome to submit comments in writing. As I want the record to show, a good number of Winter Hill families did. Those comments will be entered into the record. And anyone who else wants to make a comment in writing is always welcome to do so, and ask for those comments be entered into the record. Moving along. We have actually next is the approval of minutes, and then we will take we'll do the Winter Hill facilities. Right. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes from May 8th.
Second.
I believe that was the mayor who made the motion. Is that correct? Oh, sorry, it's the mask. So a motion by Dr. Phillips, seconded by Dr. Ackman to approve the minutes from May 8th. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to the report of the superintendent, and we will begin with the WHCIS facilities update. We'll start with the mayor and then move to the superintendent, then open the floor to members. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, I'll talk. Well, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about the school updates first. No? Okay, I'll start. So, thank you. Some of my comments are going to be similar to the comments that I made on Thursday, and I'll just give some other brief updates. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to share the updates on the response underway at the Winter Hill Community School. If you walk away with one message tonight, it's clear, is that I want you to know that we hear you. We are completely with you. I'm committed to either a renovation or a complete rebuild. And I look forward to working with the school community, that's the parents, the teachers, and the school committee, to make sure our students and teachers have the environment they need to succeed. As mayor, I understand the process could be frustrating and can be long, and my apologies. So I'm here before you today to be crystal clear. We will allocate all needed resources to this project with urgency. We can and we will get this done. I've been meeting daily with Interim Superintendent Curley, Chair Green, Vice Chair Krepshin, members of the school administration, our staff, to constantly be updated and make sure that everything is moving forward as we intended, not only on the school side, but that we're also moving forward on the city side. We will ensure that the Winter Hill students have a great place to learn. They have a safe place through the end of the school year, and they will have welcoming space for summer programs. We will have quality classrooms ready for them this fall, and we'll work to, again, rehab or rebuild will stay, this theme is going to stay front and center. We are mobilized, we are focused. We've also put, there has been some money, but we've put additional funds in, dollars into funds. We've appropriated almost $8 million from free cash to the Facility Renovation Reconstruction Stabilization Fund. That's a long way of saying it's a certain bank account that's restricted for its use. There was about $4 million in there. There's over $12 million in there now. We've also added another $1.3 million for a feasibility study, at the same time submitting for an SOI. So as I said back in January, I said the city will fund the feasibility study from our own money. But we will also, which the decision of the school committee was, to also do a statement of intent, which then asks the state for some money. So I would say in a simplified way, it's like grant money. Maybe they'll give it to us, maybe they won't, but no matter what, we are going to keep on moving forward, and maybe we'll be lucky and we'll get grant money. We've also added another position, a senior project manager position within capital projects. We're going to work as fast as we can to get this done. I would like to, acknowledge that people are upset, and they should be, about our failing buildings and the legacy infrastructure problems. I'm upset about that too. And I agree with some of the comments that our schools must be safe. They must be for quality learning, as I mentioned to the teacher who was retiring, that the plan is to build for the 22nd century. It's not to look back on the end, but try to figure out what's the best planning forward. So what I heard, a lot is, having a clear path, report to the public, engineering reports. Absolutely. I have demonstrated in the 8 years that I've been on an elected official, 9 years I've been elected official, that it's transparent. You get the information. You will be involved in the decision making. There is a community process in this, and you will have options. And we will work with the information in real time. We're still at this moment still collecting information. We're having our capital management people look at different buildings to give the parent and the school community options of what they think is best. If they decide it's one building, if it's two buildings, or however, you will all be apprised of it. You will get the report. And what we are trying to deliver on is, in this month, is to then have, hopefully by the end of the week, is a web page that's up that shows the tracking. And I gave some people the Gantt chart that just gives a sense of what's been done and how we're trying to move it forward on the rebuild or rehab piece. I've heard loud and clear that you want to keep it in the same location. I have also received an email from the PTA steering committee that the community has, the Winter Hill community has different ideas and thoughts on what is important to you. And you will be part of the, that has to be heard. You will get all the information, and whatever costs and all that, I think somebody had mentioned too, happy to share that with you if we have it. We will share the information as we get it. At the moment right now, we are still collecting the information, getting the analysis, and sharing back as soon as possible. If it's daily, we said said we would do it at least once a week. We will, if we get information back sooner that is worth sharing, absolutely we'll share it. I mean, it was the similar approach that we have worked with in terms of communication through the school department to you all about your, through this whole process that it started. So thank you. I know it's frustrating, but again, I'm not going to take your voice away. I'm not going to exclude you from information. And, thank you for listening.
So next we have Superintendent Curley, and then we will turn the floor over to members for discussion, deliberation, questions, etc.
Thank you, Chair Green. Thank you, Mayor Ballantyne. I just want to give an update kind of on where we've been recently and some upcoming steps we're taking with the city. So I know it is a little bit of a tired cliche, but the SPS staff and the city administration have really been all hands on deck the last 10 days. We know that this closure has created an incredible hardship for our families, and that once again, we've had to ask our incredible caregivers and our educators and our school-based staff to pivot and to move locations and to start teaching again in a temporary learning environment. One thing that I have been very heartened by in this crisis is that SPS as a community and really the Winter Hill community itself has really stepped up and supported each other. It has been a huge lift to get more than 425 students and over 100 staff into school space again and back learning for the end of the school year. But we have all witnessed countless acts of support and generosity and contribution from educators, from other schools. So I'm happy, and if you saw some of the social media we shared out, we had grades 1 through 8 at Tufts, met by Jumbo, met by Jinx the Wildcat, an amazing kind of experience for those students to kind of be greeted on a college campus in a wonderful building and by an incredible partnership with our Tufts community. The Capilano stepped up and the West Somerville stepped up to make sure that the Winter Hill students, the pre-K2 students, had field days this year, and that their field days, which were on the Friday when we closed, were not lost, and those students had that experience. Last Friday, I was at the East Somerville, where the East hosted an amazing, beautiful moving on ceremony for 8th graders at the Winter Hill. And staff at our Edgerly building, which is primarily our SFLC and our multilingual staff, have welcomed our AIM students and supported them. And there's a field day for our AIM students in the works this week. Our PTAs have stepped up across the city and rallied in so many different ways, organizing, delivering gifts, making sure teachers felt welcome in their new space. I'm very thankful to everything that everybody has kind of contributed in this collective crisis. And I want to just summarize all of the steps that we have been taking and we will continue to take. So to date, SPS and the mayor's office have been really making sure that we're getting communications out on a daily basis in all target languages to our staff and to our families. We're really grateful to the support of DPW and the infrastructure and asset management staff who are making sure the moves happen smoothly, and that as we look for possible space in the fall, that we're looking at all possible options. We've mobilized, thanks to the rec, to stand up. The mayor stood up a recreational drop-in space at the Founders Rink, and we had food distribution sites, again, thanks to the city, for the Winter Hill students on those Monday through Wednesday. I think everyone knows our students are at the 3 different campuses at Capilano, Edgerly, and Olin Hall, but that took an incredible amount of transportation coordination work with SPD to make sure crossing guards were moved and kids were able to be transported safely. Superintendent Mazza has been driving the bus to and from Capilano for some of our students. I'm not making that up. Every morning and afternoon to make sure Winter Hill students that may walk with siblings are able to get back to Winter Hill and have their siblings be able to take them to and from school. So it really was all hands on deck. I think I mentioned that, we've been coordinating a lot with DESE on try to figure out what to do with this closure and when the school year would end. And the commissioner's office has really praised that this is, given the circumstances, one of the best responses they've seen to try to make sure learning got stood up and happened in the end of the year. And so again, I just want to thank everybody that has been a part of that. We also had a meeting this Sunday with over 150 of our educators, making sure we kind of updated them on where things stood with the transition. As the mayor mentioned, we have been in touch daily with MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, and have a meeting hopefully Wednesday or Thursday this week to see what we can do with accelerating support for the school build. And then also, as the mayor mentioned, she has amended the budget to seek some specific items to support the acceleration of the Winter Hill building. One of them is the poorly named feasibility study, and that is the report that would basically give a sense of what possible build sites, including on the Winter Hill site, we will have as options, and the pros and cons and the trade-offs of those sites. I don't pretend to be an expert in this area, but it's one of those prerequisites to actually designing a new building and getting started on the funding. But that feasibility study, again, while poorly named, really will give us a sense of what the options are of where to place a school. Structural engineers have been in the building last week and this week, and as the mayor said, reports will be made available publicly as soon as possible. I know the city is working on a website to support any and all information there, and we've been working closely with the infrastructure and asset management and capital projects teams to try to identify options for classroom space next year, and should we need it, should we be pushing out any staff space, to also figure out staff space off-site for the fall. We are going to have a formal community meeting in the next, I think, week or two. We're working on the scheduling for that. Our staff is at Winter Hill every afternoon for pickup, and so we're available as parents and caregivers have questions to try to answer those questions at the Winter Hill as you come pick up your students. And hopefully we can have maybe an informal meeting on Friday the 16th at pickup, where we can just again try to answer any and all questions for the information we have. We know this is a very, very urgent and immediate challenge for parents. So I was just looking at the calendar, and I don't mean to pre-ruin people's summers, but our staff is going to be back actually in 50 working days, starting back at work. I think students are back with us in about 70 days. So this is in order to find a solution and share that with families is something, now that we're stable and we have students back to work or back at school and we have learning happening, we know that this is the next immediate thing that we need to turn to, and to give as much information as soon as possible, hopefully some clear information before we head off into summer. And I think as the mayor said, and as I want to reiterate, you have my commitment, and I know you have Dr. Carmona's commitment to do everything we can to keep the Winter Hill community intact. We know Winter Hill is a large and complex school. It was already pushing the limits of its existing space in that space, but we're looking at any and all options to try to make sure that the school community stays intact and stays whole. And again, as soon as we have a date for a formal community meeting, we will share that out. I just want to again thank everybody. The Winter Hill is a really special and strong community, as has been evidenced by the testimony and multiple meetings. And through this crisis, they've only reinforced that strength of community. And as we continue through this, expect daily communication from us and an update on when we can have a formal community meeting with the city on next steps for the school in the fall. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Dr. Phillips.
It's now a good time to bring up this resolution.
The floor is yours.
So Me, Chair Green, Dr. Curley worked on a resolution that is entirely about the short term for Winter Hill. It is kind of, there's two things that I think of motivating it. One is there's only 50 or 60 days until people need to be at their building for next year. And the second is the education community, the education stakeholders. I think it's really important that at this moment, we speak with one voice, and we're very clear about what that voice is. So the resolution's in the packet. Do you want me to read it?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna read it. There are two, sweet. It's on your screens. There's two friendly amendments people have suggested throughout the day. You want me to read it with them or hold it? Because I'd be happy to accept them. All right, I'll read it with them. I'll flag it for you, okay?
Okay.
So, whereas the Somerville Public Schools closed the Winter Hill Community Innovation School, Winter Hill School, on June 2nd, 2023, so that structural engineers could conduct a more thorough review of the building after an incident of falling concrete. And whereas a complete structural engineering report on the status of the Winter Hill School has not yet been completed, and it is not yet known what repairs must be conducted to allow students and staff to safely reoccupy the building, nor how long and how much money these repairs will take. And whereas the Winter Hill School community has made clear the importance of reuniting and staying united in the 23-24 school year and beyond, and whereas the Somerville School Committee is committed to keeping the Winter Hill School community whole, and whereas the Somerville School Committee cannot wait for the structural engineering report to begin planning for the 2023-24 school year in order to keep their commitment to the community of the Winter Hill School, and whereas the City of Somerville is finalizing its FY24 budget and standing the Winter Hill School up for success in a unified location will require investments not yet in place. Be it therefore resolved that the Somerville School Committee directs the superintendent of the Somerville Public Schools to relocate the students and staff of the Winter Hill School to a single new location for the 23-24 school year, and, this is a friendly amendment, notify families of this location by July 15th. Be it further resolved that the Somerville School Committee requests whatever funds necessary be added to the City of Somerville's FY24 budget, another friendly amendment, or appropriated from an existing stabilization fund to secure and prepare adequate building space for the community, including the relocation, if necessary, of any services or personnel dislocated to make room for the Winter Hill School, as well as to transport students, if necessary, to and from their new location.
So I accept the friendly amendments, and I also second. So I just want to remind one of our normal procedures. If people want to suspend the rules, that is their option. But normally we give resolutions 2 readings. So theoretically, this would be a vote at our next meeting, unless members chose to suspend the rules to do it this evening. Dr. Phillips?
I think given the talk out there, the confusion out there, I would move for us to suspend the rules and vote on this tonight, if you all agree.
Second.
All right, but there's a motion to suspend the rules, which doesn't get debated, so we just have to have that vote. It takes a 2/3 vote to suspend the rules. Superintendent Curley, will you call the roll?
Dr. Ackman?
No.
Mayor Ballantyne?
No.
Ms. Patone? Dr. Phillips?
Yes.
Ms. Dion?
Ms. Patone, no.
Ms.
That was Ms. Patone. Was that a no, Ms. Patone?
That's correct, a no.
Okay.
Sorry, Ms. Dion?
Yes.
Ms. Barish?
No.
President Ewan-Campen? Ms. Krepshin?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes. By a 4-4 vote, it fails. It requires 2/3 vote majority. So the motion to suspend the rules fails. So we will have a final vote on this tomorrow. However, we can still discussion, deliberation, questions, comments, and there's also questions about where we are with the process with for either the superintendent or if the mayor is willing to answer questions for the mayor. Dr. Phillips?
I really appreciate the transparency. I appreciate all the hard work that is going in to simultaneously plan for next year and plan for the future. One of the things that I have questions about is the plan. I hear a lot about we are going to rebuild the Winter Hill and we are going to rebuild the Brown. And while I've heard a lot from education stakeholders, superintendent, us here in the school committee, of talking about, well, what is it that we really need? Do we need 2 new K-8 schools? Do we need a middle school? Do we need to move our SPED students from one place to another? I don't see anything in the action steps tracker that's directly speaking to it, although I thought that was part of perhaps the master plan building capacity study and some of the work we're going to undertake this fall. So I'm not sure who I'm directing this to, but if someone could clarify that piece of the planning that we are undertaking, that would be really helpful, I think.
Does the other superintendent or the mayor want to speak to that?
So would you repeat your question? You've heard a lot about, please say it again.
Yeah. My question is, where's the discussion of our vision for what our education model is going to be, and where are the different specialized programmings going to be, right? We heard Principal Gosling speak to us about how she's pretty concerned about having a regular ed program, the AIM program, and one of our ELL strands all at the Winter Hill. It seems like a conversation about our programming, where we'll go, would fit in really nicely into this planning, but my question is, where is that happening?
Yeah, I'm not sure that.
I'm sorry.
That sounds like a question for the superintendent.
Oh.
Of education planning. If you want to add to it afterwards, please do.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So this is really kind of phase 2 and potentially 3 of the work we did with Flow Analytics, building on the enrollment study. I think we need to be clear about sort of an educational plan beyond just the building facilities themselves. What is our early education strategy? Is that being fulfilled by the Capuano and the pre-K classrooms that the district has, and at all but the Brown School? What is our plan as we see the growth of AIM to kind of make sure that those students have a continuity of support as they age up in our system? That has already been obviously one of the big stressors on both the Capuano in terms of space and the Winter Hill. It's work we've done with MLE students of limiting transitions from school to school, but I think we need to be clear strategically as a district on some of those key questions, as well as some of the bigger ones, the K-5 versus K-8 model. And so we're going out to bid right now on some contract work to do that. That's sort of next phase. And I think as we think about the feasibility study, again, that's not just how many students are going to fit in a school. It's what programming that school should provide. Where do those students draw from? And what is that going to look like 5 and 10 years from now? We have some of that data to inform where we think trends are going in particular programs. But we need to do that work as a district to then inform, not just the size and location of a build, but what happens inside that school, and does it align with our educational values and vision?
Just to add on, I know that you and I have discussed the possibility of working with Dr. Kona to hire a project manager consultant for the committee and the district to make sure that over the next year that work happens on a timely manner and are dotted and T's across every step in the process. Mayor Brown?
Well, picking up from where the superintendent and the chair were speaking, through you, Chair, to my colleagues, I'm not the professional, but this is how I understand it as a big picture. They've done their studies. So, we had to figure out what the projections were for students, so the school committee, school department did that. They got the numbers. We know that there's, over the next 10 years, at a high level, student enrollment is projected to decline, but our special ed programs look to be on the increase. So it leads us at a high level, when I was speaking to our capital projects team and infrastructure team, that could mean that we need more buildings. Okay, the programming and all that, that's you all. I can't say how the learning in the 22nd century is going to look like, but you're aspiring for something. I don't know how the spaces are. I mean, there's an opportunity to dream here, because the learning for the special ed or the ELL requires, from what I've learned, requires a different space. The feasibility is, once they get that, is what are the design concepts? What are the potentials for location? We've heard a lot of people say they want to stay in their location for their neighborhood, so that could be it. I've heard people throw out that they want a middle school. I don't know. It's like the school department's going to have to share it with us, and you all are going to have that discussion. But we're going to do it as quickly as we can. We didn't anticipate that the enrollment study wouldn't finish last November when it was projected to finish. It went into the spring this year, so everything moves a little, but we are trying to work as quickly as possible to, come up with a design on design concepts and location concepts, which are part of the feasibility study. But we're just not at that place right now. That's it, and I understand it, and I understand that that's the frustrating piece of this. We're just not there. We are at the I forget what Chair Green and Superintendent, sort of the educational, what was it, programming, and and how that's going to influence the space that people want, parents want, the community wants for those schools that are going to be designed for the 22nd century. I mean, that building was what? Built in the 70s, I assume? It's a brutalist, concrete design, and yeah.
I believe that we have Ms. Patone on. Ms. Patone?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, go right ahead.
Thank you, Chair Green. Thanks to everyone who has shared the current status and just the incredibly amount of effort and acceleration in this process to set up students, families, and staff. It really has been astonishing, and of course, heartbreaking that all that energy has to be put in place to remediate a problem. I do want to, I'm responding, we're still talking about the resolution, is that correct?
Yes.
I had my hand up, and I don't, I know it's really challenging to administer the online person. I apologize that I couldn't be in town this week, and the people in person. I had questions before I wanted to vote, but I had my hand up, and I respectfully asked the chair to kind of take a pause occasionally, just to if there is somebody online that is trying to participate, to let them ask a question or say something. But it looks like the vote's already done, so there's nothing to do about that.
So, Ms. Patone, just to be clear, the motions to suspend the rules aren't debatable, so as soon as I had a motion in a second, I had to act on it. That was the reason I didn't wait for further discussion. But
so we're not allowed to talk about why we might want to suspend or not suspend?
No, it's a parliamentary vote. It's not a procedural, not a policy vote.
Okay, that just seems different than we've done in the past, but I respect that. So my question, going back to moving forward to my question, is July 15th a realistic date from administration that there could be a decision about where students could be next year in an attempt to make them all in the same place? Because I do acknowledge, or I would assume, and maybe that's a mistake on my part, that having everyone in the same space, which we all are supportive of and we would love to have, might be a little more complicated than, you know, the solution that was come up this year. So I guess that's the question to administration.
Superintendent Curley?
Through you, just for clarification, the question is feasibility of?
July 15th, as stated in the resolution.
Of having an answer on the fall? Is that right? Yes. Yeah.
That's
so. Thank you. Through you, Chair. I think that has to be our absolute furthest out date. I know there's a lot of moving pieces here, and we're moving with all deliberate speed, but you know that will be within 4 weeks of staff beginning to return. And I think, you know, I think internally our goal has been to get answers as quickly as possible. And to me, July 15th is the absolute latest time we can let families and staff know where we're going to be in the fall.
Thank you.
Sorry, Ms. Barish?
I understand that structural engineers have been in the building, maybe are in the building right now. Does anyone have a sense of when they will have reached a point where they can provide some kind of report that can be shared with the public and with us?
Ms. Valentine?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have that answer now. And I did not see this resolution until the end of the day, so I couldn't even talk to my staff about it, and I didn't have a heads up on it. So we're working as fast as possible. I'm hoping, you know, I don't want to put a date out there, but we are working, you know, around the clock on this. So I don't have that answer for you. I hope I'll have it really, really soon.
Please.
Through you, Chair. I mean, the other element of this is obviously there's either remediation work that has to happen in the Winter Hill, or there's a whole bunch of work that has to happen at another location to get that ready. And so there's both, you know, these things can be in tension of trying to weigh all possible options, but also move with as much speed as possible. But as soon as we make a decision, there's going to be a whole lot of operational lift to make sure whatever space we choose is as ready as it can be and ready for students in the fall.
Is this a follow-up or a new question? All right, then I'll call myself then. And I just want to build on what the superintendent said. So for me, I think it's about working backwards from the North Star. And for me, the North Star is a new building at 115 Sycamore that is ready for 21st century learning as fast as possible. And I think one of the things we learned from the high school project is that building a school on top of an operating school is time-consuming and expensive. So we have, I think, in some ways we have this blessing of a summer to think about what our options are not being in that school. And to me, it feels like we should take that option if we can do it in a way that keeps the community whole, which is, and I talked to a whole lot of Winter Hill parents over last week, and like, keep the building, like the one thing that everyone said, I think there's a lot that people don't agree on, people have a lot to discuss, but the one thing that everyone said was the value of keeping that community whole. And I think we can do that if we're smart and strategic, but being smart and strategic takes time, which is the one thing we don't have. And I know that we in Somerville love to make the perfect thing mean the good. I don't think this is one of those times moving forward to do that. Like, whatever decision we make, is it going to be great? If there was a great no drawbacks option, we've already taken it. But I think we have to take a decision quickly and move to make the best of whatever that decision is and make the best of this situation if our goal, again, is to get people in a new Winter Hill school. And again, I will acknowledge that my preference, like that of my constituents, is to have that new Winter Hill school be located at 115 Sycamore as soon as possible. Eleanor?
Thank you, Chair. So when we were choosing a new superintendent, we knew that there were...
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant to tell the community, Dr. Cohen is online and is listening, has been in this whole meeting, and I just should acknowledge that. Thank you for reminding me.
Sure, I meant to do that. When we were, going through the process of choosing a new superintendent, we knew that there would be building issues that were going to need their attention. We did not know that it was going to be this urgent. And I am wondering, when we're talking about this timeline of July 15th, that is 15 days after Dr. Curley would no longer be in the district and Dr. Carmona will be taking over. So I'm just wondering if we are preparing for additional support in this area or what that plan is.
Let the superintendent start and I'll fill in if necessary.
Through you, Chair. Yes, so we do have some money set aside to add extra project management support, hopefully extra consulting support on the education strategic plan. The challenge often in this kind of crisis work is finding the right people that can get up to speed quickly enough. The city has actually recruited an incredible incident commander, someone to kind of help organize daily cross-departmental meetings, set agendas, make sure people are following up. So some of the structures that unfortunately we had to learn in COVID have kind of come back and been stood up to help us move really quickly and in a cross-collaborative way, but the district has money available and will be seeking support. And I'm talking daily with Dr. Carmona to see what is most helpful for him, to make sure that as he enters, he has everything he needs to make sure we work our way through this.
Ms. Patel?
Thank you, Chair Green, through you. I appreciate your frankness about your preference, and I don't want to preclude that 115 Sycamore Street may be the location for a new building. I also want to acknowledge that this is a building we'll have for another 50 plus years, and I don't want to jump to a conclusion without analysis, learning, and community engagement. We have two buildings that are in rough shape. Obviously, we have one building that's an emergency situation, which makes the message of the resolution that much more compelling to come up with a new temporary location where everyone's together. But I do want to take care. I know I don't want to go into analysis paralysis, but decisions that have been made in the past, such as deciding to get rid of the Powder House School, is something that some of us have said, wow, why was that decision made? And it really wasn't forward thinking. And so I just want to echo what the mayor has been saying is like, this is a process, this is a rich community process, and we need to figure out what's going to be our facility needs for the next, 50 to 100 years. So I just want to, not to say that I wouldn't support rebuilding there, but I do want to take pause and know that there's going to be work that has to be done to make those decisions. And I am completely compassionate to the point of view of the Winter Hill community. I also know that we as a district have the responsibility for the whole district, and we need to figure out what's going to be the best move considering that community input. Thank you.
Any other comments? Ms. Crepston.
I just wanted to quickly circle back to Ms. Barish's question and just let you know that I was on several of the emergency Zoom meetings happening over the weekend, and Dr. Carmona was there. So I just wanted to make you aware of that as well. So he really was on the ground and knew what was happening minute by minute.
I want to echo, like, Dr. Kimona basically has already started. It kind of threw him in the fire here, but he has been an active participant in the disaster planning. Any other questions, comments? All right, hearing none, this will come up for second reading at our June 26th meeting. So continuing the agenda. So continuing the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Chair. Last week, we had the honor of celebrating our class of 2023. Graduates from Somerville High, Full Circle, and Scale all had wonderful graduation ceremonies. Each ceremony was different, but it was like incredible glimpse of kind of the return to normalcy for many of our students, a highlight of their talent, their compassion, their leadership, and was grateful to share the stage with Mayor Ballantyne at each of the graduations, and we just want to wish all of our Somerville classes of 2023 all the best in their future endeavors and as they head out to the summer. And I will turn it over to Mr. Mazza.
Through the chair. Next is the seal of biliteracy. We want to congratulate the 33 Somerville High School juniors and seniors who earned the Massachusetts Seal of Biliteracy this year. Among the 33 students who qualified for the seal were 8 who earned the Seal of Biliteracy with distinction. The Seal of Biliteracy recognizes students who have attained high functional and academic levels of proficiency in 2 or more languages. Congratulations to all on this outstanding achievement. Next, we have a Somerville first grader among the winners of My Ideal School contest. A huge shout out to West Somerville Neighborhood School first grader Selah Bridge, one of 10 winners in the 14th annual My Ideal School contest hosted by the Massachusetts School Building Authority, the MSBA. First grade students are invited to submit an essay and a poster depicting their ideal school. The contest promotes discussion among students and teachers about thoughtful design and construction of schools to support student engagement in the 21st and 21st century learning. Winners are recognized at a special ceremony held at the State House. So congratulations to Selah. Our last day of school, Friday, June 16th, is the last day of the school year. It is a half day for all students. Pre-kindergarten students will be dismissed at 11:30 a.m., and K-12 students will be dismissed at noon. And now our team shout-out. Tonight's behind-the-scenes shout-out goes to our amazing partners at Somerville DPW and Tufts University. Our colleagues at the Department of Public Works, they play an important role in making sure that our classrooms are ready for teaching and learning every single day of the school year. They are very much members of our school community. Over the last week, as you know, DPW Commissioner Jill Lathan and her team have gone above and beyond their standard outstanding support of our students and staff, working nearly around the clock in support of the Winter Hill community. Similarly, Rocco DeRico and the team at Tufts University have made sure that the Winter Hill students not only feel welcome, but experience a true sense of community during an unexpected time in college on the Tufts University campus. A special thank you to our friends at DPW and Tufts University for their exceptional support and partnership. And if I may, I just want to speak to a little bit of what Tufts is doing for the Winter Hill students. So as you know, and Dr. Curley mentioned, when students came on the first day, they were met by the 2 mascots. There was breakfast provided for the staff, and they really made staff and students feel special. They made them feel like they belong. They made them feel like they had been there for a long time and were excited, which made the students excited to be there. Some of the things that each department at the university are doing over this past week, I just want to read some things because it's truly amazing the level of leadership and planning that has gone into making Winter Hill's students feel energized, feel welcomed, and really getting authentic learning experiences that not many students can get. So a few things, I have a nice list here that I like to read because it plays to the importance of really building that solid community foundation, and this is just several examples of that. So there's story time and games on the psychology of emotions. There'll be a guest readers reading The Color Monster, Life Doesn't Frighten Me, and A Little Spot of Feelings, to really talk with students about what those things mean. There's also story time called When I Grow Up, and they're reading a book, You Matter, and the wonderful things you do. And they're really giving students the experience of, let's envision what you want to be when you grow up, and let's really talk about how we can make that happen. There's psychology and you interactive demonstrations. The psychology department's going to be doing visual illusions with the students, sensation and perception, and memory games and more. The chemistry department are doing chemistry shows at Olin Hall for the students. They're also going to be doing chemical reactions, displays for students, hands-on learning activities for students, and it's all this week. There's outdoor science labs that they're building. They're going to be building bottle rockets and seeing how far and how high they can go. There's going to be campus tours for 8th grade students on, I believe, either Thursday or Friday, really giving them an experience, and it's a 70-minute tour of the full facility and the full campus to give students the full experience of, wow, this is what a college campus looks like, and it's right in our backyard. There's engineering workshops where kids will be doing robotics. There's crafts and games. There's flag making and mapping activities. And there's also recess games with Tufts athletes. So there's athletes still on campus. They're going to be coming tomorrow to do activities and games with the students. And as we were sitting here, Rocco sent another email to Courtney basically saying that the professional ultimate Frisbee team, the Boston Glory, will be in town, and they're going to come tomorrow during recess as well. So in less than a week, the Tufts community really put together something special for Winter Hill students. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew that the public knew that, and if you get a chance to go there and witness the joy, you know, in that community partnership, please do, because it's only for a few more days, but what they have done for our students is truly amazing, and I just want to thank them publicly.
Mayor Ballantyne?
So thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, to everyone. I will also say that I have spoken quite frequently with Rocco DeRico, and he said initially he thought, you know, it's like, okay, is this going to be a disruption? You know, not just you, everything comes to mind. He said, as being the parent of 3, he said the energy level and excitement of having the kids on campus, what it's done for the faculty, the students, and also the administration, he can't say. He said it's just so fun watching the 7th and 8th graders walking across, you know, coming from the T, walking across the main quad, but he said that they themselves have gotten so much out of this. So, of course, I had my wheels turning and ideas about how we could expand this. And they have a new president coming in also on July 1, so it'll be exciting. But I just wanted to share back that he said it's been a wonderful experience for the Tufts community also.
Thank you. Ms. Dion.
I just, like, that's wonderful. Like, it just warms my heart to hear all of that. Like, just talk about taking lemons and making lemonade. Like, it's this awful situation. And, like, it's wonderful to hear that, like, the whole Tufts community has really stepped up to, like, give it a silver lining for these kids. That's really lovely to hear. Thank you for sharing that with us.
All right. Is there more to the report?
Through you, Chair, just one other item. I just want to point your attention in the packet to a detailed memo from Paulina Metropolis, our multilingual education director. Because of the schedule this year with the superintendent searches and a number of other items, typically we have the director of that department here to present and do almost a school improvement like presentation on the work of the department. We ran out of that time this year, but Ms. Metropolis gave a very detailed memo of all of the incredible work that she and her team have been doing. And so she is not here with us tonight, but I would invite you to pore over that and then share any questions back with me or with her, and we can respond to those, and we can have her back either next meeting or in the fall. But I just wanted to make sure that the committee saw all of the work that the MLE department is doing. It is a group, as we have discussed, that serves a growing number of students in our district and does so with an incredible commitment and values. And there's a lot of great stuff in the memo, so I want to make sure everyone has a chance to look that over, and then we can answer any questions at a future meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Does that complete your report?
And that concludes the district report.
Dr. Ackman.
Thank you. Through the chair, this is now the second school committee meeting we've had since we've started hearing from constituents at the Healy about their concerns about the end of looping. My understanding is my colleague Ms. Patone brought that up at the end of last meeting. I'm curious why it wasn't on this agenda and when it's going to be on an agenda.
Well, if necessary, it'll be on the agenda for next meeting.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for the superintendent? That brings us to the report of subcommittees. I did not bring my subcommittee report, so item A will get tabled. Item B, Dr. Ackman.
Yes, I think Ms. Santiago doesn't have mine, so I can either table it until the next meeting or email it, or read it out loud. I know that we had at least one inquiry from a constituent specifically about, what was addressed. I can also talk about sort of the high-level pieces, including the math curriculum that was chosen through my understanding, a very detailed selection.
My preference is always to have the written copy so we don't have to spend time, but I'll let the members decide if they want to hear it now or just have it tabled till next meeting with a written copy available. All right, so no one objects, I'm going to table it to next meeting. All right. That brings us to unfinished business. Ms. Barish, we have 2 items up for second reading.
Thank you, Chair Green. Ms. Patone asked at our last meeting if I had reached out to MASC. I had not, but now I have. The recommendation or the feedback from MASC was that most districts don't restrict public comment to residents or staff. It's even more broad than that. I did look a bit at some of, other urban districts and other neighboring districts, and a lot of them say that they are glad to have citizens at their meeting, and they don't specify whether they're, citizens of the city or residents of the town. So I guess all that to say that our current policy is more specific than most other policies are about who gets to speak at the meetings. I think that's all I have to say about it.
I'm going to call myself as someone who co-wrote the original policy and was not at our last meeting for this part, just to give a little rationale for some of those choices. The reason we limited it to Somerville was originally about the fact that, well, we recognize Somerville's place in the relative pendulum, politically speaking, and I can speak to the out-of-town, unsolicited, frankly, hate mail I've received as chair, and even though I didn't know at the time, I can speak to what was our concern that if we let anyone speak, we'd have a whole lot of people of a certain ilk coming to speak at our meetings to tell Somerville what Somerville should do. And again, I was speaking personally, some of the mail I received over the last several years from out-of-towners inclines me to continue to feel that way. And as far as the original ruling about not having employees, the feeling of the then union leadership was they wanted to be the voice for teachers. Current union leadership does not feel that way. Ms. Dion.
I also want to echo what Ms. Barish said. I also reached out to people who are also teachers who are members of school committees, like asking in your serving district or your teaching district, like, do they let non-residents speak? And a lot of people said yes. Just a list of like districts that do. And like Ms. Barish said, a lot of them say just like members of the public in general. Like my friend Aisha on the Cambridge School Committee was saying that like people who work at like nonprofits in the city have spoken. But yeah, so like Cambridge, Watertown, Amherst, Brookline, Arlington, Abington, Duxbury, and Silver Lake Regional all said that they allow like members of the public to speak, but I do understand what you're saying about opening the door to all sorts of people coming in. So I would be fine. I definitely think that the employees of Somerville Public Schools should stay in there, but I would be fine either saying Somerville residents and employees of Somerville Public Schools, or just broadening it and saying the public. I would be fine with either of those.
Dr. Ackman.
Thank you, through the chair. I think that's a wonderful point. I guess something I've seen and something I would encourage, because to Ms. Dion's point about the nonprofits, what I've found is it is not very difficult, because we are such a politically active and incredibly tight physically community, that if a nonprofit feels a perspective needs to be shared, they can. I have yet to see a challenge with them finding a resident who is willing to, lend their voice to that. And I think, again, to the point of like, local people who, care deeply as well, but may not be residents, I think that also encourages them to engage in the community, right? Like if these nonprofits are supposed to be serving the community, come find us.
Ms. Patone.
Thank you, Chair Green, through you. I want to first thank Ms. Barish for following up and finding out what other districts do. That's super helpful. And, I would, if we want to be inclusive of staff, I can see, my worry and my hesitation was about the fact that in my time, and since we've had public comment, we tend to have a much larger percentage at public comment be staff than parents. And what I've noticed in these situations with, for example, Winter Hill and even the Healy, it takes many weeks for parents to organize themselves, and it takes no time at all for staff to organize themselves. And I that is bravo to the staff, like kudos, there's no critique there. It's just an acknowledgement as a body that because parents may or may not be organized in the way that staff are with a full-time union representative, they're not necessarily going to turn around their comments or their participation as quickly as our staff do. And fortunately, in this last area, I've been incredibly supportive of everything that the staff's been saying. So it's just, there's some context for this. I also want to be careful about, maybe I'm remembering it wrong, because I do know that Chair Green was instrumental in developing the policy. I didn't think we made a decision about who was participating based on the union leadership. I think that decision was actively made by the body. And I also want to take care to not make a future decision based on this union leadership. Our policies should be based on what we want to have, regardless of who's in what role or not. So that's just some context from me. But I'm really glad to get the feedback from MASC and from other districts that it is not unusual to include staff.
Calling myself, first, just to clarify for Ms. Tone, maybe you weren't aware, but that was, Superintendent Skipper was a large push for not having staff speak, and that was her rationale. Obviously, it was not the only reason for this made, but that was the rationale given to myself and at the time Ms. Palmer by Superintendent Skipper for why she was in favor of limiting it to just residents. The other thing I wanted to say, I actually asked a question. Actually, I didn't say it's a question for Ms. Barish and Ms. Dion. The districts you spoke to, had they gone through the process of updating their policies in light of the last SJC ruling? Because I think before the SJC ruling, I've been more open to saying anyone can talk, because if they did start spewing hate or what have you, we could rule them out of order.
Yeah, that I don't know. And that's why I feel like I would be okay with not saying the public and just saying residents or staff in order to protect ourselves.
Ms. Barish?
Similarly, it was not, I don't believe that all of the districts that I looked at had updated their policies.
All right. Ms. Krepshin, Ms. Barish, Ms. Dion.
So just a quick comment or a suggestion perhaps, much in the way that we have currently had, it was residents except at the discretion of the chair, and in reality the chair usually ended up letting employees speak. Could we keep it as residents and district employees and at the discretion of the chair, a local nonprofit? I mean, not specify what it is, like anybody else. I'm just throwing out that suggestion, and that would solve the nonprofit issue or whatever it was. Somebody came to the chair beforehand and said, I work at this local nonprofit, I want to make a public comment. It could be the chair's discretion. So I'm just throwing out that as another option.
Is that a motion or just a suggestion?
I will do it as a motion, but I have to figure out exactly the wording.
All right, we can come back to you. Ms. Barish?
I just wanted to let my colleagues know that it looks like there's a page missing from the printed version that you have. So I think all pages were in the packet that you would have seen online, but I just wanted to give you a heads up, because I realized that the bit about lawless conduct, or which contains obscenities, what precedes that isn't there. So yeah, there's several, I think it's just a page missing. I believe it's correct online.
I'm going to call on Ms. Phillips. She hasn't spoken yet, then Ms. Dion.
I just wanted to appreciate Ms. Krepshin's suggestion. I think it's excellent. I think there are probably opportunities where we want someone who's not a Somerville resident to be able to speak, and giving that at the chair's discretion makes a lot of sense.
Ms. Dion, myself, and then we'll come back to Ms. Krepshin and see if she has a motion.
Yeah, I wanted to share some thoughts in response to just the idea of that, the teachers should go through the union and that's their channel. I understand that mentality, but I also feel like I don't think any of us can honestly say that, getting an email with 30 teachers' signatures, getting an email from union leadership with 30 teachers' signatures is going to have the same impact on us as 30 teachers showing up here and packing the meeting and speaking at public comment. So that's I know that I can't honestly say that those two things would have the same impact. So that's why I feel like it is important to keep that, to maintain the employee's right to speak at public comment, because I think it just has more impact on us.
All right, I'm calling myself. And so I know this is a comment that comes from, 2.5 years of having this gavel, or 3.5 total. My fear of things like, at the chair's discretion, for things like this that are litigious and is that, like, I am always very mindful, as both Ms. Laika and Ms. Contini Field can speak to today, about setting precedents. Like, once we set the precedent that we were going to let teachers and employees speak, even if they aren't residents, I was loath to withdraw that precedent. Because when it comes to, especially when it comes to freedom of speech issues, it's very important that we not only be content neutral, but be seen as content neutral, which means not making decisions based on who is speaking, or at least being consistent in those decisions. So I like the idea, and if it's feasible, I would want to see it. But before I would feel comfortable voting for it, I'd want to hear the lawyers saying that they feel they would stand up in court to leave that kind of issue up to chair's discretion as a matter of policy. Dr. Ackman?
Thank you. Through the chair, I think just to agree, the chair as the head of our body, I'm sure receives even more negativity than the rest of us do. And I think at the discretion of the chair, rather than a straight coherent policy that we have all voted on, leaves this person who's already doing a lot of work up to more potential harassment.
Ms. Patone?
Thank you, Chair Green, through you. I have 2 points. One, I brought this up as a conversation about, what we originally wanted, the intent of this policy and where we've evolved to, and I absolutely respect Chair Green's perspective on the fact that we've set this precedence and there's other communities that do that, and I can see us moving forward that. I really do also, though, want to comment to our body is that this gives school committee a responsibility to make sure that we're planning and communicating well with our community and allowing that time for parents who clearly, at least what I've seen in the time we've done public comment, can take a little bit more time to organize than, say, our collective bargaining units. So what I guess I'm putting on the table, and this is not part of the policy, and this is just a thought, about making sure that we're not rushing our decisions and that we're allowing time for parent input, acknowledging that they're not organized in the same manner. Going to the question about whether or not we should have at the discretion of the chair to let either non-residents or non-staff speak, I would be more conservative and stick to what we have and not add that. But I could be compelled by others if they want to. I agree with Dr. Ackman. If nonprofits want to participate, they can always send us emails. There's all other ways to engage with the school committee, calling, and then again, working with either staff or parents. I don't want to put our chair in that position of having to make judgment calls and being accountable and being in a position of the legality. So I would err to not add that amendment.
Ms. Krupsch?
I didn't officially make an amendment, and I don't think I'm going to. So I think I will withdraw it, even though I didn't officially make it.
So there are no amendments on the floor. Unless someone's going to put one on momentarily, I'm going to call the question. I'm going to give Ms. Patone, I'm going to give you a chance if you have anything else you want to make any motions or whatever.
Oh, no, thank you, Chair Green, for checking in with me. I'm all set.
All right, then I'm going to call the question, hearing about pending any objection. We have a motion from rules in second reading sorry, I lost the actual number of it.
I hope BEDH.
EDH, thank you. File BEDH, public comment at school committees. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. It was just from rules. Also coming out of rules is file KCD.
So this is the public gifts to schools policy. As I explained at the last meeting, this essentially just codifies what is our current practice. Mr. Gorski said that he didn't see any issues with this. Our lawyer approved of it. If anyone has any questions, I will try to answer them.
I'm going to speak for myself and say this feels super complicated. Dr. Phillips?
Apologies, just clarifying question that I forgot to ask before. When like the soccer team does a fundraiser, is the money they raise covered by this policy, or is that a different policy?
Ms. Parrish?
I don't know.
So
it says all grants and gifts to the district. I don't know if every team has a sort of like almost booster organization. I know some do. So in that case, those gifts would be going potentially to that booster organization, but I don't know the answer to that question.
Dr. Eichmann, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I mean, the line kept separate from the general fund, is that not sufficient to cover your question?
If fundraisers count, yes.
I see. Thank you. I just wanted to thank Ms. Barish. I know you've said it many times, but you do a really good job with this, and I appreciate your hard work.
I was saying, this feels very technical and, in accordance with state law, so I wouldn't feel comfortable making any changes to it unless I spoke to a lawyer and Mr. Gorski. We have a motion by Ms. Barrett, seconded by Mr. Green. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, that brings us to new business. I will entertain a motion. Dr. Ackman.
I move to approve the scale diploma request of Simone Sinori Mahor in Roxbury, Massachusetts.
A motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by Dr. Phillips. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, Simone. That brings us to items from committee members. I have two. The first, I made a mistake earlier. I should have made it clear that on the motion to suspend the rules earlier, if there was a motion to reconsider, it needed to come from someone who voted no. I only mentioned that, and I also, relatedly, this is our last meeting of the school committee before presumably the city council votes on their budget. So if we have anything, if members have anything, especially related to Winter Hill School, which is on the agenda, around budget asks for the city council, this is probably our last chance to say anything. All right, let me give that about. Ms. Patone? Ms. Patone, is this in reference to the budget thing, or just an item from board member?
Actually, I have another item, but I actually had this same item. I had a question for you about that.
Okay.
I guess, so first I want to just be very thankful to the colleagues who created this resolution. I realized that the timeline was super quick. I actually was busy today and I didn't get a chance to see it. So I was sort of taken aback to have to vote right away on whether or not to suspend the rules, because the first question I always have about suspending the rules is whether or not it is really important to do it right now, because my druthers is always to wait, because I want to give the community and our whole community a chance to respond. But in this situation, as I read the resolution, it is very specific about budget commitments. And my question was, which I think you're sort of intimating, is that if we don't approve this tonight, we can't necessarily make the statement that we want the appropriate budget commitments to make sure that we can put all of our students together in one building. Not implying that the mayor wants to do anything different, but we can't necessarily put it in the form of a resolution. And so if we can either A, I guess, revisit the question, right? Put the motion forward by someone who hasn't, or B, get a commitment from the mayor in another way, because obviously I'm concerned that the mayor hadn't seen it either, so that puts the mayor in a bad position. So I'm curious what the mayor's thoughts are and whether or not she would, through the chair, be opposed to us moving this resolution forward now that she's maybe had some time to process it.
Well, I can say that the mayor has left the meeting, so I don't know if I can speak for what her thoughts are. So, yeah, there's your answers. I can't speak to what the mayor wants, and neither can the mayor. She's not here.
Okay, so that was, all right. I'm sorry, through you, Chair Green. So I'm processing, and my concern is whether or not, if we don't pass this right now, whatever budget asks we're asking for may or may not be set up, because the budget, my understanding is it may or may not be complete before the 26th of June when we would have our next meeting.
Right.
Do you know if it will or not?
So by their current timeline, they're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be done by that point. So our options at that point would be related to asking for supplemental budgets, which I don't know how long that would take, and it's the summer. However, the option before us is always, we could have a special meeting to vote on this if we wanted to get it done before the final budget vote. I don't know what dates that would be off the top of my head. I'd have to look up the calendar. We'd have to do it before 6/21. Thank you, thank you, Superintendent.
May I ask another question through you, Chair Green?
You may.
I know I wasn't the only other no. I'm just curious if any of the other no's have had further consideration now that they've heard that the timeline might be a concern.
Ms. Barish, you were one of the no's.
I was one of the no's, and one of the reasons was because it did not occur to me that it was quite so time sensitive.
Dr. Ackman.
Thank you. Through the chair. So I think part of why I want, or a large chunk of why I wanted to wait, is because while I believe that, you know, the Winter Hill School and community should stay together in one building, like I at the moment do not feel comfortable attempting to compel our superintendent to do that. If I'm open to adding the language of something like to make every best effort, and then, you know, to keep them all in one building, and then I would consider voting in favor of it tonight. But I believe that that is what, you know, district administration is going to do, but I am hesitant, especially again in, 17 days to have a new superintendent coming in, and that is something that we're commanding of them. That was what gave me pause.
Superintendent Curley, any response?
Through you, Chair. So I did review this resolution on Friday, and I support the objectives here. I think, as I said, there are things in tension around moving with all options on the table and good community process and trying to get as much information as quickly to families as possible. I think it is our every commitment to try to keep the Winter Hill School whole, and that has been Dr. Carmona and I's conversation for the last 10 days, and a commitment and that we've reiterated over and over with the mayor's office. So I feel comfortable with the language that we're going to do everything we can to try to make that happen. I did try to caveat in my remarks, we were having trouble fitting the Winter Hill in the Winter Hill, and Somerville is Somerville, so this is a difficult problem, but I think we're going to do everything we can to try to make it happen, and to have the urgency of resources and planning, because whatever option we come up with temporarily is going to take a considerable amount of work in the next 60 days. So I'm eager, and I think Dr. Cremona is eager to try to get that work moving as quickly as possible.
Dr. Ackman?
So as a follow-up, so through the chair to the superintendent, you have no qualms about the language, and is what you're saying?
That's right.
Thank you.
To add to that, I do believe, although we'll get to a huge caveat in a second, I do believe that if between now and July 15th, the superintendent realizes that they cannot make this happen, then they would bring, I think the prudent thing to do to have school committee reconvene for a special meeting and discuss that. Ms. Barish.
Is it appropriate to make a motion to reconsider?
It is.
Okay, I move to reconsider waiving the second reading.
So the way this would work is you move to reconsider the vote to suspend the rules.
Okay.
If a majority of the committee votes to reconsider, we then revote the motion to suspend the rules.
I move to, sorry, I move to reconsider.
Okay, and before you do that, because we get complicated, we'll get this real complicated real fast. Ms. Patone.
Thank you, Chair Green. Through you, I was just going to say even though Superintendent Curley feels comfortable with the language, I actually echo Dr. Ackman's concern about changing the language a little bit to make every best effort. It's a little more clear and a little more transparent, but I know that we have to make the decision of whether or not to reconsider suspending rules first, but I'm just sharing that. That is going to be part of my perspective on this. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Barish.
I'm sorry, I'm probably going to do this wrong again. I move to reconsider the vote to suspend the rules.
Yes. Dr. Curley, will you call the roll on the motion to reconsider? Those don't require seconds. Yes. Dr. Curley.
Dr. Ackman?
Yes.
Mayor Ballantyne? Ms. Patone?
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Patone?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Dr. Phillips?
Yes.
Ms. Dion?
Yes.
Ms. Barish?
Yes.
President Ewan-Campen? Ms. Krepshin?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Now we have to revote the motion to suspend the rules as motioned by Dr. Phillips and seconded by Mr. Green. Dr. Ackman.
Say it again.
This is the vote. This is the actual vote to suspend the rules.
Yes.
Sorry, why am I doing the roll? Dr. Curley, I'm trying to get out of here. That's why.
Don't steal my glory here. Dr. Ackman?
Yes.
Mayor Ballantyne? Ms. Patone?
Yes.
Dr. Phillips?
Yes.
Ms. Dion?
Yes.
Ms. Barish?
Yes.
President Ewan-Campen? Ms. Krepshin?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
The motion again passes.
Rules are suspended. Okay. Is there any further discussion on the resolution? Dr. Ackman?
I would like to make a friendly amendment, unless it's not friendly. An attempt at a friendly amendment. Be it therefore resolved that the Somerville School Committee directs the superintendent of the Somerville Public Schools to make every reasonable effort to relocate, adding in, make every reasonable effort to relocate the students and staff of the Winter Hill School to a single new location for the 2023-2024 school year.
Dr. Phillips? I mean, I just want to get it done with, I would actually prefer, if I were to make the friendly amendment, that it say, keep the language as it is and add, if the superintendent determines that they cannot meet this goal, that the Somerville School Committee will reconvene to discuss options.
I would like to give the superintendent as much flexibility as possible, so I would like to keep the language as is.
Dr. Phillips, it is your motion. Okay. Friendly amendment accepted. Any other discussion? Ms. Patone?
Nope, I lowered my hand. Thank you, Chair Green.
Ms. Barish?
Could you just clarify, were both of those?
No.
Where are we? Just Dr. Ackman?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Hearing no further comments, questions, concerns, I'm going to call the question. Dr. Curley, will you call the roll?
Dr. Ackman?
Yes.
Mayor Ballantyne? Ms. Patone?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Ms. Patone?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Phillips?
Yes.
Ms. Dion?
Yes.
Ms. Barish?
Yes.
President Ewenkampen? Ms. Krepschen?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. That brings, but the mistakes I made there lead to, or a nice segue to my second item from a board member. This afternoon, I submitted a letter to the interim superintendent in his role as secretary of the school committee, announcing my intention to vacate the chair as of July 1st. By the procedures of this body, when that happens, Ms. Krepschen will succeed as acting chair until such time as this body has another public meeting to elect a chair and, if necessary, a new vice chair. In order to do that as smoothly as possible, I have ordered that before our next school committee meeting on the 26th, that we have a caucus of school committee to designate candidates for chair and vice chair. Any other items from board members? Ms. Patone, I thought you said you had one?
Thank you, Chair Green. Through you, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to, well, first of all, this is the quickest thank you, but the deepest felt thank you to you and your service. I know we will spend more time discussing and vetting you in the future, but I couldn't not say something. You've been such a champion over the last several years and really dealing with some of our most challenging times. So I just wanted to flag that. But that wasn't my item, but I will just say that because I couldn't not say it. My item is a request that the report from the Building Maintenance Committee gets put on the agenda for next meeting.
Gladly.
And I did include, I had Ms. Santiago include the report in the packet for this time. Some of the information is old, but everyone at least has everything historically that building committee has done. I want to also make it clear to the body and to the community that although we've been calling it a joint meeting, it's technically a city council meeting. So all minutes are posted on the city council's Legistar site. So we don't, as school committee, have to submit minutes, but I do choose to submit a report to the school committee so that everybody can be kept up to date. But school committee members are encouraged to go to the city council site and get the detailed minutes.
Thank you. Any other items from board members? Hearing none, are there any condolences?
The Somerville School Committee would like to extend our condolences to the families of Albert F. Argenziano, retired superintendent of the Somerville Public Schools, and Nancy Flaherty, mother of Brianna Aravelo, assistant site coordinator of community schools at the Albert F. Argenziano School.
We are adjourned.